nor shy. She's a part of the assembly line. She's making history, working for victory. Rosie, the riveter, keeps a sharp lookout for sabotage. Sailing up there on the fuselage, that little frail can do more than a male can do. Rosie, the riveter.
This is the riveting story of women during World War II.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by air, President Roosevelt has just announced. The attack also was made on all naval...
The year is 1941, and the attack on Pearl Harbor meant the entrance of the United States into World War II. The American men who left for war said goodbye to their families, friends, and also their jobs. There was few men left to produce necessary wartime supplies such as weapons, airplanes, and warships. The government knew that they had to turn to a new source of power rarely seen before: women workers. Before this time, women were seen in the home providing for their families, cooking, cleaning, and raising the children. This caused much reluctance among factory owners and society who believed women were not fit for these demanding, dirty, and dangerous jobs. To help change these minds, the government, along with employers, launches a campaign promoting the idea of women going to work. This is considered to be the start of the icon Rosie the Riveter. Posters, ads, and articles describe the work of women as vital for a good outcome in the war and also a way to support the man that they love who went to fight. This became a success, as many women who never imagined leaving their home lives went and joined the workforce.
With the Army taking men by the thousands, we had to find people to replace them. A great untapped reserve was women.
Isn't this a funny place for you?
Not if it helps win the war.
But with our country in peril, the women of America rallied to the support of their men. And here, in this almost the last great industry we thought could be handled only by men, these mothers, wives, and sweethearts came to stand shoulder to shoulder with them in almost every capacity.
By 1945, more than 6 million women had war jobs, and this wasn't just in the factories. Women were needed as office workers, fixing cars, keeping up the farm, and other jobs that men left behind. Many new opportunities for women also started here. Engineers, doctors, journalists, chemists. These were all fields that women could freely gain an interest in. More than 13 million women at this point had jobs. And even as they were paid less and not always treated well by remaining male workers, these women found a new sense of purpose and pride in their new responsibilities as working women. This liberation caused many of these women to forget their old roles of the past.
And the women, are they doing all right?
Beyond anything anyone ever dreamed of.
Isn't this pretty hot for you, Miss Spillane?
Well, I hear it gets kind of hot around the kitchen stove, too.
I never thought of that.
And that gives you an idea of the spirit here. These women are working around the clock, around the calendar. They do a man's job, and they're doing it safely. They're safer here than in their own homes.
She's making history, working for victory. Rosie, the riveter.
Rosie the Riveter, which became a well-known symbol over time, began to develop a greater meaning behind the woman on the cover. Many do not know that the character to appear on the We Can Do It poster was never directly associated with the name Rosie the Riveter. This just became a name meant to represent all of the women who took war jobs. It's still unclear about where the name Rosie came from, but there are many stories about where it originated. Many different versions of Rosie were created, aside from the one that we know today. Rosie to the Rescue, for example, was the name of this cover, intended to represent the many jobs that women took on during the war. The masculine appearance of this Rosie, in an earlier created cover, was meant to make people more accepting in the idea of a woman doing this work once dominated by men. These symbols all created an empowered feeling for all of the real-life Rosie the Riveters. In 1945 came the end of the war. The nation is excited to have their men back, but these returning soldiers expect to have their jobs waiting for them. Only a quarter of women are willing to give them up. Many refuse to quit and are fired. Many were also sent back home, where they were told was their real job.
Edith Stoner's husband is in Alaska. She took this job for the duration.
How do you like your job, Mrs. Stoner?
I love it.
How about after the war? Are you going to keep on working?
I should say not. When my husband comes back, I'm going to be busy at home.
Good for you.
What about after this war, Lee?
Well, this job belongs to some soldier. And when he comes back, he can have it.
Oh, that's swell.
For some, the taste of being a working woman had come to an end. Within a year, more than 3 million women have left the workforce. But for many, this newfound freedom was not so easy to forget or move on from. Working during World War II has forever changed American women. The thrill and satisfaction of learning a trade transformed them into the people who would later go on to fuel the liberation movement of the 70s, when women fought again to be treated equally in society.
Who are these women? We are these women.
It is safe to say that these Rosies of World War II played a key role in forever changing the roles of women in America. I'd like to dedicate this project to my great-grandma Helen Adler, who was a real-life Rosie the Riveter. Like many other women in this area around World War II, she worked at Willow Run on the B-24 bomber aircraft. This plant was ran by the Ford Auto Company and utilized Ford's assembly line. This was so efficient that the women who worked here were able to fully assemble each plane in under 55 minutes, which was unheard of before this time.
More than 500 structural parts were attached to a conveyor and moved along an assembly line. Each of these women workers had a certain job to do in furnishing this wall with its necessary equipment, including more than 1,000 different parts. Back in 1941, it was believed impossible to build a bomber as big as the Liberator in an hour. The Willow Run bomber plant has furnished one of the miracle production stories of this war. It produced 8,685 bombers in a steady stream, relentless, unceasing, on time, as methodical as a great river fed by its tributaries.
All of these contributions made by the women like my grandmother during the war fueled it from the home front, and the outcome of the war may have not been the same without them. So thank you to the women of World War II who faced every challenge head-on.
That's our part in bringing about a quick victory and a quick return of our loved ones. The threat of hard-working women in the production of materials must make our enemies afraid of our day of victory. Our enemies must be made to feel the mighty power of women. The women behind the men, behind the guns. Women at work.
When they gave her a production need, she was as proud as a girl could be. There's something true about red, white, and blue about Rosie the Riveter.